quick audio test here, just making sure that my sound is all good before the broadcast begins here soon. I just want to be sure that my audio is good enough that you can hear me no matter what cam I am on. So testing that real quick, and then we'll get to broadcasting here soon. Alright, hello everyone, and welcome to America's Nights Season 7, Round 2. We are here at Laguna Seca. We are just about to get started with qualifying. In fact, it is actually starting now. So let's go ahead and get out on track with some of these drivers. So, got a few that jumped right on it as soon as qualifying started. They were out on track. So currently we've got Andres, Gar, Santos, Fernandez, Ruotsalainen, and Wilson all on track, with more slowly funneling their way out of the pits. We've got an exciting night of racing ahead of us, and let's see what qualifying brings. Let's go ahead and do a quick little ride along with our leader out of the pits. Ruotsalainen jumped right on it as soon as that timer started. He was out on track, ready to go. Down through the S's here, cutting the corner. That's I don't know if that's gonna help his car perform very well during that qualifying. Hopefully not damaging himself at all. That certainly is going to be a point of interest during the race as well. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people that are struggling with that corner. Possibly jumping down, and there's a high risk of damaging your car, also a high risk of spinning out. These GT3 cars are not meant for huge bumps like that, and definitely not meant for I mean, even if you stay on track, you're gonna have to deal with some pretty heavy bumps that may not be the best for your vehicle, but then if you go off track, you're just making your problem even worse. So being able to keep it on track during that sector will certainly be an important thing during the race. It could be make or break depending on how well you can tackle that part of the track. And of course, there's other tracks that are, or other parts of the track that are quite tricky as well. So we'll have to see how these drivers handle all of those tricky corners. We're going to stay on with Ruotsalainen here. He is... It's showing that he's down on his delta, but this is his first lap out, so I don't know why I was even looking at that already. And it looks like we have got 13 drivers in the grid currently. 14 as another one just joins in as I was talking. I believe last week there was a total of 19 drivers, so I don't know. I didn't get a chance to look at the withdrawals, see who's currently out of the race, or is planning to not make it. But currently we've got 14. Ruotsalainen is first to put in a valid lap at a 124.8. That is fairly quick. Santos close behind with a 125.4. Next across the line is going to be the 24 car of Fernandez with a 126. Then Gar with a 127. And Dress was next across the line with a 120 in the 126 range. And as more cars start to cross the line, we'll get an idea for what a good lap is and what a average lap is. Wilson just set the new fastest lap at a 124.472. Currently about 4/10 faster than Mudd, who just moved into second place with a 124.812. Just 5 thousandths faster than Ruotsalainen, who is currently qualifying in third. And we are starting to get more lap times in. We currently have 8 cars with valid lap times. And it looks like 329 is about to cross the line. That is Holbert, but he is on an invalid lap. I believe this is his out lap. Trocchio is also on his out lap currently. And then it looks like Ruotsalainen is on an invalid lap, unfortunately. He is down on his delta anyway, so not too big of a deal there. Santos close behind, also on an invalid lap, unfortunately. So the next car that we're going to be looking at that is on a valid lap is Fernandez, who is currently more than a second up on his 126 lap time. And then behind him is Gar, who is 2.5 seconds up on his current best. That is going to move him up into fourth currently. So Ruotsalainen into third, Gar in fourth. And then as far as other cars that are currently running better lap times, we've got Hester, who is running a 1.5 seconds better. And it looks like he is coming out of the final corner now, so we'll see where this 1.1 second better lap time will put him. It is going to move him all the way up into second with a 124.8, so we have now got 4 cars in the 124.8 range with Hester, Mudd, Ruotsalainen, and Gar all running a 124.8 something. But that still means that they are all chasing Wilson, who is at a 124.472 still, and is currently up on his delta by 0.3 of a second. That is, if he is able to pull this off, this is going to be a very fast lap and make it even harder to catch him. But we do still have the winner from last week, which was Freitas, who has not put in a valid lap yet. So when he puts in a valid lap, I'm sure that that is going to mix things up quite a bit. Let's go ahead and take a look at Freitas currently, who is, I believe, still on a valid lap. It does look like he is on a valid lap, yes. And is currently... Oh, cuts the corner there a little bit and is now no longer on a valid lap. So we will go ahead and go back to some of our front runners. Hester is currently 0.6 up. But Ruotsalainen runs the fastest lap. I'm a little behind here. It looks like he ran that fastest lap just a little while ago. But he is now at a 123.8. That is very quick. Wilson went faster as well, but it was not fast enough to beat Ruotsalainen. So Wilson's still in second. Hester just runs a 123.9, moves him up into second. That pushes Wilson down to third. Wilson is going to need a faster lap if he wants to get higher up and onto that first row. Mudd has moved into the pits, so he is currently not outlapping despite being in fourth currently. So it looks like these three are going to be battling for that front row. Gar is on a green lap, but not by much. It is not going to be enough to push him up into that top 4. Santos is currently 2/10 up, but again, that is not going to be enough to push into this battle that we have going on up front here. Let's go ahead and... Oh, Ruotsalainen has pulled into the pits, so let's not go ahead and ride along board with him. Wilson and Hester are both about a second down on their lap times. Santos is currently on his best lap, and that moves him up into 5th as he starts a new lap now. We have got a lot of jumbling around. Freitas is in the pits, so that means he is still not putting down a valid lap, and he has got 7 minutes to go. So I don't know how many valid laps Freitas is going to get in, but you know, like I said, he won last week, so we know he's a fast driver. Hopefully he can get down a valid lap and put himself somewhere up near the front, or else he is going to have some serious work to do. Holbert, whose current best lap is... Oh, bummer. Holbert was about a second up, and right as I was about to talk about him, he appeared to have gone off track and is now in the pits. So we have got quite a few cars in the pits currently, probably making setup changes and stuff like that. But as far as the lineup goes, we still have Ruotsalainen in 1st, Hester in 2nd, Wilson 3rd, Mudd 4th, Santos 5th, Gar 6th, Endres 7th, Fernandez 8th, Trocchio's 9th, Gross in 10th, Holbert in 11th, and then as far as cars that have not put down a valid lap yet, we have Freitas, Arjitsu, and Storey, and it looks like somebody else just put in a valid lap that was one of the few without a valid lap when I was mentioning it, and I believe that was... Storey. No, maybe not. Something Lap. Sorry. That was Something Lap who put in a valid lap and moved himself up into 6th position. He is currently also up on his Delta, so he could potentially move into 5th place. He's about 2/10 up currently, and Santos is roughly 2/10 faster, so that could potentially, if he can keep this up, Something Lap will move himself into 5th place. The battle between the top 3 is very tight, with Ruotsalainen at a 123.812, Hester at a 123.9, and Wilson at a 124.0. So they are all within a few tenths of a second of each other. And it currently looks like Hester and Wilson are both up on their Delta. Wilson is the 86 car. He is further along on his lap. Let's go ahead and ride along in his car, see what he's doing in that vehicle there. He is still on a valid lap and is currently 3/10 up as he comes down through the corkscrew. Oh, lost some time through there. He's now 2/10 up, so still on a valid and green lap, and is now 3/10 up again. This could potentially move him into 1st. As he comes out of the final corner, let's see, will that be enough to move him up into 1st? He's 2/10 up currently. No, it is not enough to move him up into 1st, but it will move him up into 2nd over Hester. However, Hester is also currently on his fastest lap as he comes out of this final corner. Where is that going to put him? It could potentially put him into 1st. No, still not fast enough, but it will move him back into 2nd over Wilson. So Wilson pushed back down into 3rd, despite having his fastest lap so far, as Hester goes off and is probably going to be done, I would assume. Even if he gets back on track, he would probably only have enough time for one more valid lap. Wilson is currently down on his Delta, and we do not look like we have anyone that is currently going to be able to put Ruotsalainen out of 1st or even put themselves onto the front row. Mudd, I believe, just started a new lap. Yes, he has just gone out of the 1st corner, but he is green on his Delta. This qualifying is getting pretty intense. Lots of people in the pits again, though, surprisingly. With only 3 minutes left in qualifying, I would believe that the people that are currently in the pits are only going to get one valid lap at most if they were to leave the pits right now. So, interesting strategies going on here with a lot of people in the pits. Freitas and Storey, who are both in the top 3 for most of the race last week, do not have valid laps currently. Freitas is still in the pits. I am so shocked. I do not know what could be happening there that Freitas is still in the pits. He would have to jump out right now in order to have enough time to get one valid lap in. Storey is currently on a valid lap. So we will have to see what happens there. But I am just so incredibly shocked that Freitas is still in the pits. He's going to be starting from the back, it looks like, as Storey goes off track, and that is going to invalidate his lap. So he is going to have one shot, I believe, at a valid lap, and to see where it'll push him in to the lineup. But it looks like two of our fastest drivers currently are going to be starting from 14th and 15th. Mud is currently 2/10 up on his delta, but that is just because he has just started that new lap and is just going through the first few corners. But we will definitely be keeping an eye on him, because if he can run a fast lap, it could potentially move him up into 3rd or 4th. Our fastest lap is still Ruotsalainen with that 1:23.812. He is in the pits, so I think he is going to accept that time, which makes sense because that is a very, very good time. I do not see any reason for him to jump back out on track. Even if somebody were to run faster, I don't think it would push him very far down the lineup. So that is probably a good choice, not to use up his effort, his physical effort and physical strain. Might as well just rest up and get ready for the race. Hester is currently on a valid lap, but is 3/10 down, so I don't think he is going to be giving Ruotsalainen a run for his money. He is not going to be competing with him on this lap. So that is unfortunate. However, Hester still looks like he's going to be starting 2nd, which is very fortunate. So that is a good showing from them. We have got our Jitsu currently 2/10 up on his delta. Let's go ahead and take a look at him there in the 777 car. He's now 3/10 up on his lap. We have got a very close field here. First place is at the 1:23.812 that I mentioned. And currently in 13th is David Holbert, who is at a 1:26.437, currently off track. But that is just a few seconds between the entire field currently. Freitas still in the pits. Storey was finally able to run that valid lap and is going to be in 6th and is on another lap, so he may be able to get one more in and push himself up, but it is hard to say. Currently, he is at dead even on his delta, a 0-0-0 all the way across the board. So it is not looking like he's going to be moving up. Mud is currently on a green lap at 2/10 faster. This could potentially move him back up into 4th over Suntenlap. We have only got a few cars out on track currently, one of them being Mud, who is about to cross the start-finish line on a green lap. Let's see if it's enough to move him into 4th. And it is. Mud into 4th and Suntenlap down into 5th. Storey is now also on a 2/10 up lap. And he is coming down towards the finish line. Sorry, not towards the finish line. That is Trocchio that is coming towards the finish line. And he is going to be looking like he is starting 11th. Yes, he is, as Storey is the only car still out on track. Let's see where that is going to put him. He is now 4/10 up as he comes across the finish line. That is going to push him up into 4th. And Mud down into 5th. Suntenlap into 6th. And we now have our full starting grid, as I am going to go ahead and, just in case, put up this black block here on the screen. Because we have got to make sure that we block our, we've got to be blocking the server name, because ACC has been having issues with people hacking into servers just based off of the server name and then causing issues and causing the servers to shut down. So I am going to go ahead and make sure that that is off, and then let us go ahead and take a look at the field here. I apologize if I mess up any of these names, but we are going to go ahead and take a look at our lineup here. Let's go ahead and turn off all of the details there. So first in our lineup, we have Ruotsalainen starting from first place in that 666 car. Second, we have David Hester starting in that 64 car. That lines out our front row. In our second row, we've got the 86 car of Wilson. Fourth place, we have Storey in the 584 car. Fifth place, we have Matthew Mudd in the 511 car. Sixth place, we have Suntenlop in the 66 car. I am actually going to go ahead and remove that block now that we are no longer in that start menu. And starting from 7th, we have Santos in the 177 car. Lots of 7s here, as we have our Jitsu starting from 8th in the 777 car. And starting from 9th is Luke Gar in the 16 car. 10th, we have Endres in the number 5 car. Surprised he is starting from so far down in the lineup. Again, though, we have got a very, very fast grid of drivers here. So, I mean, even the fastest drivers can end up in the back. So, starting from 11th, we have Jeff Trocchio, the leader of the Half-Fast Gaming the leader of the Half-Fast Gaming crew and the one who helps organize this race, along with Jackie Harris, who unfortunately could not be here tonight. But that is the 242 car there. After that, we have Fernandez in the 24 car, starting from 12th. 13th, we have the number 3 car of Zach Gross. 14th, we have David Holbert in the 329 car. And, as I mentioned, a very fast driver starting in last. Then that is Mateus Freitas in the 188 car. So very, very shocking to see him starting from the back. We will have to see what he can do. Now, let's go ahead and go to our TV cams and take a look at the front of our lineup, and then we will go ahead and also throw the HUD up there. So we've got the track off to the right here. The driver name of who we're looking at in the bottom right corner. And then obviously the list of drivers overall on the left, and that updates by sector. However, I do have a list of what's going on a separate screen here that shows me stuff that is happening live. So I may be mentioning things that you guys can't necessarily see in the lineup that you're being shown, but I will be able to see it, and I will do my best to mention it to you guys. Now, as the cars start rolling, just a quick rundown of the rules and details of the race. It is a 70-minute race, and there is one required pit stop, quote-unquote, and it is to reset the stint timer. Drivers have a 50-minute stint timer, and in order to reset it, they have to simply drive through the pit lane. That does not mean that they have to stop. They do not have to pull into their pit box. They do not have to go up and down on the jacks. Nothing of the sort. They simply have to drive through the pit lane, and it will reset. So, again, that is a 50-minute stint timer, which means that there is essentially a 20-minute window where drivers can pull through and reset that timer. Now, last week, we had one driver, and that was Endres, who really tried to push it and pitted literally 2 seconds too early, and so his stint timer ran out just as he was about to cross the finish line, and he was given a, I believe, 60-second penalty. So it'll be interesting to see if anyone pushes it this week, and see if anybody really tries to get close with it. I kind of doubt it after seeing that 60-second penalty that essentially ruined Endres' race. So I highly doubt that anybody is going to be pushing it like that this week, but you never know. And especially now, last week, it was only a 10-minute window because it was a 40-minute stint timer. They have decided to up it to a 50-minute stint timer to make it a little bit more interesting, and I do believe that it will make it quite a bit more interesting. So we will have to see what happens here with I'm sure there will be different strategies again with the fact that that stint timer is now a bit different. So as we come down through the corkscrew, it looks like the drivers are starting to line up in double file. We have still got a little ways of the track left to go, though, before we're going to be getting to the green flag. We are going to go ahead and, like I said, ride along with Ruotsalainen as we come to the green flag. I am very, very excited to see the start of this race and see what happens. Last week, we were at Indy, and it was just an absolutely crazy race. That was my first time ever broadcasting, so I didn't live stream it, but I did broadcast it, and am certainly tempted to post it someday. But for now, I can just explain what happened, and let me tell you, it was a whole heck of a lot of chaos. But enough about last week's race. We are coming to the start-finish line here in today's race at Laguna Seca. Ruotsalainen is leading them as we've got a little bit of a gap already. And the light is green, the flag is waving, and we are away. Ruotsalainen gets a very good start, but Storey gets an even better start and is right on his tail coming into this first corner. All the drivers are 2 and 3 wide back through the field. 329 is off track. He appears to have lost connection based on that little image that we got there. That is quite unfortunate of a way to start his race. Hopefully that is not the case. Hopefully he just got a little bit of lag, and it looks like that was the case, or maybe he is disconnected. He is disconnected. That is unfortunate. But up here at the front, Ruotsalainen is still in first as Storey is behind him in second. Then we have Hester, Wilson, and Sunthunlap rounding out the top 5, as it looks like we are mostly single file through the field here currently. Freitas has already moved up a couple positions into 13th as we've got a battle up ahead of them. It looks like lots of 2 wide up in front of them. And it looks like our Jitsu has a front row seat for this, and that is the 66 car and the 177 car battling for position there. And our Jitsu is going to try and take advantage around the outside of this corner, but cannot. So that means that Sunthunlap is going to hold on to 6th place. Let's move into the Helicam here, as it looks like there's still some battling going on behind them, and Freitas moves up a position into 12th. As, let's see, I believe that is Trocchio, who is trying to get past Andres, but Andres is blocking well. Oh, David Hester is off track, and that is a yellow flag there. Let's see if we can see what happened. He is going to funnel back into, I believe, the 7th position, but let's see if we can see what happens here. Oh, my apologies, I was looking at the wrong driver, but it looks like he just spun out. That is an unfortunate mishap there, but he is still holding well in 7th, and I don't believe he got any damage, so that is good. Freitas has currently the best lap. Storey is in first now, has gotten past Ruotsalainen. Not sure when that happened, but it seems to have just happened recently, as Ruotsalainen is only half a second back. Storey is pulling away, though, very quickly. As I mentioned, Storey was only able to get 2 valid laps in, so I'm sure he was able to run faster, and I think we are seeing that now as Freitas moves up into 10th, and Trocchio appears to have had an off. Let's see if we can go back far enough to see what happens here. Oh, just gets too much of that big sausage curb and goes off track. Thankfully was able to hold it off of all the walls and stuff, but that does push him all the way back into last place, and he is going to have quite a bit of work to do, which is very, very unfortunate for him. Looking at the rest of the field, it looks like we've got a lot of very close battles going on here. Lots of cars within a second of each other as Storey just puts in the best lap at a 124.552. Second fastest car currently is a whole heck of a lot slower than that. More than a second slower, it looks like currently. So Storey is very, very obviously the fastest car out on track at the moment as the cars start to spread out just a little bit. Santos is right on the tail of that 66 car, the 66 car, something like, as Hester goes off track behind them and hits hard into the wall. That is going to push him far down the field. Oh no, and that is going to give him a lot of damage, as Hester was one of our front runners at the start. He is now going to fall to the very back. Let's see what happens there. Just gets into the dirt and hits that wall very, very hard. That is going to put a major damper on his race. Very, very unfortunate. He was looking like he was going to have a very good race, and it is now looking like his hopes of getting a top 5 finish are dashed, as Freitas is now going to look to pass Gar here, as Gar goes through the corkscrew and hits pretty hard on the bumps there. And that gives Freitas the inside line for this next corner, and Freitas is going to make it by quite easily and move up into the 8th position. Again, as I mentioned, Freitas is one of the fastest drivers on the track and won last week, so it is no shock that he's already moved himself up into 8th after starting in 15th in this race. Ruotsalainen just put down the fastest lap, so that means he is slowly gaining on Storey potentially. It looks like he was just 0.7 faster, though, on that lap, so he is not gaining by much. Santos is still battling to get past something lap here, and that is one of our closest battles out on the track currently, as well as the battle for Freitas, as he is catching up to Arjitsu quickly. No shock that Freitas is continuing to move up through the field and continuing to catch up to vehicles. Further back in the field, we have Fernandez catching up to Gross, and he is right on the tail and possibly looking to make a pass, but decides better of it and backs out quite early, and that is going to give Gross quite a bit of space. I am going to take a quick drink here. Even as the broadcaster and with all this exciting stuff going on, I do still have to make sure I stay hydrated. Gross went a little wide on the corner there, and that did give Fernandez a look, but still not enough for Fernandez to be able to make that pass. As further up in the field, we will come back to this later. Further up in the field, Freitas got up within 0.2 of Arjitsu for a couple corners there, but then was not able to progress on it. But Arjitsu goes a little wide there, and that is going to give Freitas the position and move Freitas up into 7th. We came over to look at this battle at just the right time. Freitas up into 7th and also puts in the fastest lap at a 1:24.197. And now Arjitsu is going to move back into 8th, but he is thankfully not under any pressure from the cars behind him, as Gar is currently 2.5 seconds behind him. Gar is essentially kind of by himself. Trocchio is now moving up onto Fernandez, who has now fallen 2 seconds back from Gross, so I wonder if Fernandez maybe made some sort of mistake there. And there is a mistake, as a commentator's curse, I suppose, there, and that is going to move Trocchio up into the 12th position. Sorry, Fernandez, if me mentioning your name is what caused that issue, but it is part of what happens, I guess. I can't just not talk about people, but it does seem like the commentator's curse is what got Fernandez there. So, Trocchio, you're welcome. Fernandez, I'm sorry. But now we've got a 3-car battle, it looks like, here. They look a little bit spread out when you look at them this way, but they are all within a second of each other, and that is Santos, Suntenlap, Freitas, and Arjitsu. All no further than a second from the car in front of them, with Freitas closing in on Suntenlap quickly. Freitas is making quick work of this field and quick work of the 66 car as he goes to the left side of him, which will be the inside coming into these first few corners of the track. Let's go to TV Cam 1 here as Freitas breaks late and does get the position, but then the 66 car comes back to the inside. Oh, what a battle. Let's take a look from the Helicam here. And the 66 car, despite looking like he was going to be able to hold off Freitas for a minute there, is not able to and is now under pressure from Arjitsu, who is just behind them. Let's take a look from the passenger side view of Arjitsu's car. Arjitsu has the 66 car in his sights as we've got a yellow flag on the track, and that is Gar that is off. Let's see if we can see what happened here. Let's go back on the replay. He's got to be careful getting back on track, and based on the yellow flags, it does not look like he collected anybody else there. Just made a slight spin, and Dress has to make some evasive maneuvers, and thankfully does. Neither of them get any damage, but that is going to push Gar all the way back into 13th. Hester is the car who just went by, but Hester is down a lap, as we know, from the issues that he had earlier in the race. So, with Gar's issue, that moves Trocchio up into 11th and Fernandez up into 12th. I believe that may have also moved Gross up into 10th, as we've got another car off. That is Suntenlap, and that means Arjitsu has gotten by. Let's see if we can see what happened here. Oh, just gets a lot of that curb. The curbs on this track are absolutely deadly. You cannot hit them, as we can see has happened multiple times now in the race that people have hit those curbs, and it has caused major issues for them. And as this is happening, Trocchio gets past Gross and moves up into the top 10. Lots of action out on track currently. So let's go ahead and take a look through our lineup, because it has jumbled quite a bit. We have Storey in first, Ruotsalainen in second, and let's go ahead and move to the TV cams as we go through here. We've got Wilson in third, Mudd in fourth, Santos in fifth, with Freitas in sixth, closely behind, Arjitsu in seventh, Suntenlap in eighth, and Dress in ninth. Trocchio in 10th, Gross in 11th, Fernandez in 12th, Gar in 13th, and Hester in 14th. And then unfortunately, as we mentioned earlier, Holbert was our one of our drivers at the beginning, but had a disconnect and is no longer in the race, unfortunately, so he is technically in 15th. And it looks like throughout the field, battles have started to phase out just a little bit, as Hester is trying to get some of his lap back, trying to get back by some of the cars that have lapped him. And certainly do not blame him there, but that is going to be very tough, because he is going to be, as soon as he gets past somebody, he's going to be given blue flags, and I'm sure it's just going to be quite tough. So, and sure enough there, as he gets the blue flag, he does let Gar go by. So essentially, Hester is just going to be hoping that other people can make mistakes and give him those positions back. Currently, our closest battle on the field is actually this battle for 12th place between Fernandez and Gar, as Gar is closing in on Fernandez here, but as I mentioned earlier, those curbs are quite deadly, and Gar just got a lot of one of those sausage curbs. That is going to slow him down quite a bit. But down the straightaways, he seems to be getting quite a run. He just loses a little bit of time in the corners. He's going to get really close to that bumper of Fernandez there. Fernandez is going to be making sure to hold his racing line here, so that Gar does not have many opportunities to pass. That is one thing about this track, is that for most corners it is very, very hard to pass. And as I'm looking at this battle here, Storey just ran his fastest lap of the race, and it is also a purple lap. But right after he runs his purple lap, Freitas runs a purple lap and is now within half a second of Santos, as Gar goes off track there. That is unfortunate. He was looking like he was going to be making a pass soon, but I believe he once again just got a little bit too much of the curb on the inside there, sure enough, and he goes off track. So that is what host Hester wants to see, but Hester still is going to be almost an entire lap behind him. But as that goes on, we do now have this battle between Freitas and Santos going on for the 5th place position. Freitas is right behind that 177 car of Santos. Let's go ahead and take a look from the rear wing of that menacing McLaren, as the Aston Martin of Freitas is breathing down his neck through the corkscrew. I'm sure that Freitas is going to be itching to get by here so that he can continue to make up ground, because Santos is currently 2 seconds behind Mud, which means that when Freitas gets behind, he will be roughly 2 seconds or more behind Mud. And here comes Freitas to the inside of Santos. Let's go to the Helicam here. They make a little bit of contact. Freitas cannot make that pass. Just could not get that corner exit. Santos had the outside line, and that gave him a good run, but now Freitas is going to have the draft. Santos is just going to hold tight on that inside line, which means that Freitas is still going to struggle to get by. Santos is very, very well holding his ground here. Let's go ahead and go back to the wing cam, as we see that Aston Martin is absolutely breathing down Santos's neck. But Santos once again holding his ground very, very well, making it hard for Freitas to get the line he wants through these corners. Let's go ahead and take a look from Freitas' view. See what he's got going on here. Let's go ahead and see what those arms are doing inside. Lots of wiggling back and forth, I'm sure. Here, Freitas gets a run into the corkscrew. This is never, ever a good idea to try and pass here, but he is going to go for it. And they are side by side through the corkscrew. Very, very clean racing, as we see, and Freitas is going to get by. It looked like Santos was going to try and make a run back, but simply could not do it, and Freitas is now very quickly running away. Man, that was very, very bold to make a run through in the corkscrew, but they both made it work thanks to some very respectful driving from both parties. You definitely love to see some clean, hard driving like that, and that was clean, hard driving at its finest. And while this battle goes on, Wilson is now within a second of Ruotsalainen. That was previously a more than 2-second gap, so Wilson must be running very, very fast lap times here. Let's go ahead and take a look from the bonnet cam here. He is just under a second away from Ruotsalainen there, and running a very fast bit of laps recently. He just ran his fastest lap, in fact, at a 1:24.445. That was 4/10 faster than Ruotsalainen's previous fastest lap. And speaking of laps, Freitas still has the fastest lap at a blistering 1:23.8. That is faster than our fastest qualifying time, I believe. Wilson is definitely running faster than Ruotsalainen right now, as you can see very clearly. He is catching up and is now only 3/10 behind for the most part. Let's go ahead and take a look from Ruotsalainen's wing cam, as that GTR is now very, very close, mostly blocked by the wing. In fact, he is so close. Let's see. He's got the draft. Can Wilson make a run down into turn 1? No, he cannot. He will have to wait just a little bit longer. Ruotsalainen holds on to that position for just a bit longer. This is by far our closest battle on the track currently, as most other gaps are 3 and 4 seconds or more, aside from Santos, who is just passed by Freitas. Santos is holding on tightly at only a second behind, but aside from that, it is mostly 3 to 4 second gaps or more, with our biggest gap between drivers being 11 seconds. Wilson seems to have lost a little bit of time through this first sector of the track there, and now moving into the second sector is also gaining a little bit of time back. Let's see what happens through the corkscrew here, and let's go ahead and go on board with Wilson as we go through. Oh, Ruotsalainen gets a lot of curb through there. That is not going to help him, and that is going to give Wilson a good shot through here. He goes very wide in hopes that it can give him a run into the next few corners, but it cannot, and Ruotsalainen continues to hold on to second. I believe that this is going to be the battle to watch for most of the next few laps here. Down this straightaway, Wilson is going to get a big draft, but I feel like we're just going to keep going through the same thing. It may be more like a broken record, as Wilson will continue to get close and then fall behind, but maybe he can prove me wrong. Goes a little bit wider through the corners there and does not get a very good exit. As you can see, Ruotsalainen pulls away just a little bit. So as I expected, it looks like Ruotsalainen is good through Wilson is good through sector 3, but Ruotsalainen is better through sectors 1 and 2, as Ruotsalainen now pulls away to a more than second gap once again. And while this is going on, Freitas has now pulled away by more than 2 seconds, my apologies, from Santos, and is now closing in on Mud at just a second behind. This battle is going to heat up very soon, I feel. Freitas is a very, very fast driver, and I don't think it will take him very long to catch up to Mud. However, Mud is also running very fast laps currently. But will it be enough to hold off Freitas for very long? It is very, very hard to say, as we've got another yellow flag on the track, and it looks like it is Hester once again, unfortunately. Hester is having a race to forget. Let's see if we can see what happens. I may have gone back too far to be able to see. Just gets too much of that sausage curb, and it spins him around once again. As I mentioned time and time again, those sausage curbs are an absolute nightmare to deal with. And that is what makes Laguna Seca such an interesting track. But while that was going on, Freitas has now closed in significantly on Mud, is only half a second back currently. Let's see what Mud is seeing from out his rear view. A whole lot of Aston Martin once again. That Aston Martin has been absolutely menacing everyone this race, as he has moved his way all the way up from 15th, his 15th starting position, all the way up to 5th, and is now looking like he's going to battle for 4th. Let's go to the Helicam here as they come down through the corkscrew. Mud continues to hold his ground and run his racing line, which is the best thing that you can do. Running the racing line certainly will make it harder for Freitas to get by. But I feel like at this point, with how fast Freitas is, it is inevitable that he's going to get by. And sure enough, Mud makes just the smallest of mistakes, and it is enough for Freitas to get by. That is going to move Freitas up into the 4th position and Mud down into the 5th position. We knew it was going to happen. It was just how it was going to happen. And sure enough, it was just Mud making the slightest of mistakes. Excuse me. It was just Mud just making the slightest of mistakes that allowed that number 188 car of Freitas to get by, and now Freitas is going to set his sights on Wilson, who is 3 seconds up the road and running some pretty solid lap times, although his last lap was an invalid lap at a 125.1, so he may have had an issue of some sort. Freitas' most recent lap is a 124.2, so just under a second faster. If he continues to run laps like that, it is going to get interesting. Currently, Storey is still out in the lead with a significant margin over Ruotsalainen at 5.7 seconds roughly. Ruotsalainen is back there running, looks like in the 124 range, as well as Storey is also running 124, should have mentioned that. Then is Wilson, who we were just talking about, who ran a 125 most recently. Let's see what kind of lap he's going to run here as he is about to cross the start-finish line. It is a 124.3, and that is in fact his best lap so far. So it looks like a lot of our front runners are running consistent 124s. Freitas just ran a 124.1. Mud looks like he had an issue on that lap because he is now 4 seconds behind Freitas, who just got past him just a lap ago, as we saw, and ran a 127.9. So Mud must just be a little bit flustered and hopefully can get back on track, because he is a very fast car driver and certainly should be running faster than 128s. Santos behind him, his most recent lap is a 125, and then it looks like through most of the rest of the group, it is 125s and 126s. Arjitsu in 7th. Suntenlap behind him by a second and a half in 8th, and he is also running 125s. Andres in 9th is 14 seconds behind Suntenlap, but is also running 125s. Trocchio in 10th is just 2.5 seconds behind Endres and has most recently ran a 126. Gross behind him by 7 seconds is in the 126 range. Fernandez behind him in the 24 car, he is behind by 14 seconds, has most recently run a 127. In 13th is Gar, who has most recently run a 126.7, and then rounding out the field, we have got Hester, who has most recently run a 129, because, as we have seen, he just continues to have trouble with this track, which, honestly, I don't blame him at all. This track is very, very tough, and I certainly can say that of the times that I have ran this track, I have had quite a significant amount of issues, so I know exactly how Hester's feeling, and it is not a good feeling to be running in the back, especially after so many, making so many mistakes. It is certainly hard to handle. While we went through the group, it looks like Suntenlap has made up some good ground on Arjitsu, unless Arjitsu has recently gotten past Suntenlap. I honestly do not remember who was in front between the two, but either way, this is now our closest battle, as we see Arjitsu goes off track and makes a spectacular save. Oh my goodness, I cannot believe that he did not wreck there. Let's go ahead and take a look. It looks like he just went a little wide on corner exit, got out into the dirt, and then goes off track and does some dirt drive in there and gets back on track without losing too much time. I cannot believe the save that he just made to not make that any worse. He holds on to 8th place. Man, what a save. That is going to move Suntenlap either back up into 7th or into 7th, because again, I cannot remember which position he was in before. Looking at our closest battles, it looks like Gar is going to put a battle to Fernandez, but it is not much of a battle at all, as he gets by and moves up into the 12th position, pushing Fernandez down into 13th. Let's see if we can take a look at that pass there. We just caught the end of it. That was a good spot to make that pass. My timing screen is actually showing that Hester is about to pass Fernandez. No, it was simply a glitch in the timing screen. He is in fact still 1 lap down. Alright, just had to check in on that real quick. And now that that little issue with our Jitsu happened there, it looks like our gaps are quite big between most drivers, at least a second all the way across the board. And Freitas is still our fastest driver out on track, although his most recent lap was a 124.8, which was actually slower than the cars in front of him, but he follows that up with the lap that he just completed, and that is a 123.8, which is a little over half a second faster than Wilson. So I feel like that will be a battle that will be happening soon, and that is the battle between Freitas and Wilson. Our field is quite spread out now, but with the field being as spread out as it is, that means that our leader of Storey is going to be coming across some lap traffic here soon. I would guess that within the next 3 or 4 laps is when he will be catching up to that 24, 64, and 16 cars. We also will be closing in on our stint timer reset window. Let's see, if it is a 50-minute stint timer, that gives them a 20-minute window in a 70-minute race. That would mean that I believe when we hit 40 minutes would be about when the drivers could start making their pits. I could be wrong on that. I'm trying to just do very quick math in my head while also trying to focus on what's going on track here, and my brain is simply not very capable of that, especially considering I just very recently had COVID and still have a little bit of COVID brain. But if I am correct, we will be looking at the start of pit drive-throughs soon. I don't want to say pit stops because, once again, they will not be pit stops. It is simply a stint timer reset, which means that all they have to do is drive through the pits, and it will reset as we have a yellow flag out on track, and that is the 3 car of Gross. Let's see if we can see what happens here. Just coming into the corkscrew. My guess is going to be just too much curb, or simply just going off track. Too much curb and going off track, I suppose. But thankfully that was not worse, as Wilson has now had an issue and has pushed himself back into 4th. Let's see if we can see what happens there. We just catch the tail end of it. He goes off track and hits the wall hard, which means he is going to have damage. That is going to be rough. That is very, very unfortunate for Wilson. I would assume he's going to have to pit. With how hard it looked like he hit the wall, I will assume that he is going to have to pit and repair that damage. But that is fantastic news for Freitas, who will now move up into a podium position. Man, lots of action happening here all of a sudden, between Gross going off track and Wilson going off track. That moves Gross down into 13th after he has decided to make a pit, and that is going to move Gar up into 11th and Fernandez up into 12th. Freitas is now 3.5 seconds back of Rotsalainen, who is 5.5 seconds behind Storey, our leader. It will be interesting to see how the pits shake all of this up. And with Wilson's issue, that now moves Mudd to be within 2 seconds of Wilson and of that 4th position. And again, I'm sure Wilson has some pretty serious damage. It looked like he hit the wall pretty hard. Let's go ahead and take a look from the passenger cam. You can see that Wilson is within view, which previously he was not. We will have to keep an eye on those lap times and see if Mudd can make up some time and get on to Wilson and go ahead and get that position. So again, I will be keeping an eye on lap times there. While I am keeping an eye on those lap times, Storey is now catching up to that lap traffic that we just mentioned recently. And I don't even believe it took him a few laps. I think that was maybe 2. And now he is right on, excuse me, right on the tail of Gross there. And right in front of Gross is Fernandez. So Storey is going to have to make some passes here, and we will have to see how easy or difficult those drivers make it. And while that is happening, it looks like Wilson has in fact decided to pit, which gives Mudd that 4th position and moves Santos up into 5th, who may be looking at a 4th place position soon, as he is only half a second back, but closing in quickly in this corner, that is for sure. So let's go ahead and keep an eye on this battle here. Santos certainly would love to make this pass and move up into 4th. I believe that what Wilson was doing is waiting to take his pit until that stint timer could be reset, because, again, if I'm correct, and it is that 20 to 40 minutes left in the race is where that stint timer would need to be reset, that would mean that Wilson is within that window, and while fixing his car has also reset that stint timer. So I would assume that that is what Wilson did, and I guess we will know for sure very shortly, because if that was not the case, then Wilson will have to pit again. While this battle goes on, it looks like Arjitsu has closed in on Something Lap and is now 0.3 of a second back. So we've got 2 battles that have very quickly formed on track, and we will have to do our best to keep an eye on both. They are both very, very close, within half a second between the 2 battles. So I will do my best to go back and forth between the 2, but it looks like Arjitsu is running significantly faster than Something Lap currently, and through this sector we will have to see if Arjitsu can get a run down the straightaway. Hester has gone off track once again, it looks like, as we've got another yellow flag from him. Looking out the passenger side view, it looks like Arjitsu is not going to get a run like I thought he could. Brakes significantly later than Something Lap and gets right onto the tail of that 66 car, but cannot seem to do anything with it just yet. We will have to see what goes on through these sectors. These are this first sector is where a lot of time can be made up or lost. As you can see there, Arjitsu was very fast through that corner, got right up onto the tail of the 66 car, but the problem is even if you are significantly faster through there, there is simply no room to pass, and that means that Something Lap is going to continue to hold on to that position, but he has a little bit of a wiggle there, and that is going to give Arjitsu the chance to stay right on the tail and potentially pass here soon as Something Lap goes wide, and that is going to give Arjitsu that position back. Remember that Arjitsu went off track in that exact same spot, which was what gave Something Lap that position. So it's a little bit of deja vu, but with the roles reversed. So I suppose that all has ended up exactly as it should be, I guess we could say, with the positions being swapped there, as Freitas has now gone into the pits, I assume, to reset his stint timer. That is going to move him back into 5th, but still 8 seconds ahead of Arjitsu as we see other vehicles starting to pit. I believe that is Hester, who is also resetting his stint timer, and this is going to significantly jumble the field. So I'll do my best to keep track of what is going on here, but it is going to get a little difficult. So Storey continues to lead the race with Ruotsalainen in 2nd, with Freitas pitting. That is going to move Mudd up into 3rd, Santos into 4th, and then again Freitas did really not lose too many positions and holds on to 5th. Trocchio has now closed some ground on Endress, and is looking like he is within half a second and closing fast for that 8th place position. Trocchio goes just a little wide there, but not wide enough to cause an issue. Santos, my apologies, continues to hound Mudd for that, what is now the 3rd place position, again, because Freitas has pitted. However, once these two make their pits, this will be the battle for the 4th place position, and Santos does decide to go into the pits, which I feel is a smart decision if he is in fact faster than Mudd. This gives him the chance to get out from behind Mudd's vehicle and hopefully put in some better laps when he has got a clear track. My apologies again for my cough. I am just getting over being sick, so I will do my best to not cough, but obviously anything can happen. And speaking of anything can happen, as Trocchio was looking like he was going to be able to pass for that 8th place position, he has an issue and spins, just grabs a little bit of the dirt on the corner exit. Some excellent evasive maneuver by Wilson there to avoid giving either of them any damage. But again, that is extremely unfortunate to see Trocchio spinning off track there, as he was looking like he was going to close in on and dress for that 8th place position, and now instead will have to continue to battle back from his current position of 10th. So with pits going on, things have started to fizzle out just a little bit, but Storey continues to make passes on the back markers here as he gets past, I believe that is Gar. Yes, that is the 16 car of Gar, who is currently on 11th. So Storey is starting to make his way well into the field, as we've got another yellow flag, and it looks like that is Gross. And it looks like he has made some pretty significant contact through the wall, with the wall. Looks like he just oversteered a little bit and then got a lot of that sausage curb, and then did in fact hit the wall. Thankfully, not too hard, but that is still some damage, and you never want to have any damage at all, no matter how big or small that damage is. Freitas still has our fastest lap out on track, which has now been moved up to a 1:23.7. Now, the thing is, last week, again, I know that you guys were not able to see that race, but last week during pits, Freitas actually leapfrogged from third, I believe it was third, up into first, and that is how he was able to win the race. Now, the reason he was able to leapfrog is because some of the drivers in front of him actually had damage and chose to pit and repair that damage, so I don't believe that any leapfrogging will be happening this time, but it all just depends on how well people do with their pits. You got to make sure that you do not speed, and you have to make sure that you... I was about to say hit your marks when pulling into your pit, but then I remembered that you actually do not have to pull into your pit box. So the main thing is just making sure that you do not speed coming into the pits, which at this track can be quite difficult. It is a very interesting pit entry, as we kind of see it there in the corner of the screen. Something Lap has now moved back past our Jitsu. Can we go back far enough to see what happens here? I did not go back far enough, but it looks like the back marker of Fernandez could have possibly had something to do with that pass there, as now Something Lap pits, meaning that our Jitsu is going to get that spot right back. So lots of people choosing to pit now with lots of different strategies here on resetting their stint timer. It looks like Andres is now also pulled into the pits to reset his timer. So lots of jumbling in the field. Santos and Wilson are going to get by Something Lap in the pits. Unfortunately, the thing is with the fact that it is a simple drive-through to reset a stint timer and not an actual like pit with tires or fuel or, you know, some sort of required pit stop. I am not actually able to see who has reset their stint timer and who has not. So that is the only unfortunate part about it being a stint timer reset, is that I cannot see what has happened. So I am doing my best to try and keep track of it in my head, but that is simply quite difficult to do. So I am almost certain that Storey has not yet reset his stint timer. I am almost certain that Ruotsalainen has not reset his stint timer. Mud has not yet either. But Freitas has, our Jitsu has not, I believe. And then as we go through the rest of the field, it just becomes absolute blur as far as who has reset their stint timer and who hasn't. But obviously, we have only got 11 minutes left for the drivers to reset their stint timer, so I'm sure that we will have that figured out here soon. Storey, Ruotsalainen, Mud, and Freitas, as well as our Jitsu, Santos, and Wilson all continue to run in the 124s. Oh, my apologies. I was looking at the best lap times. It actually looks like Storey is running a 124 something. Ruotsalainen's running a 124 something. Mud is running a 125. Freitas is running a 124, Arjitsu's running a 125, Santos is running a 125, and then Wilson's running a 124, and then throughout the rest of the field it's looking like a 127s and 128s. We have got a battle brewing up here between Freitas and Mud. This is going to be for what is currently the third position. However, again, I don't believe Mud has reset his stint timer yet. So my guess is that Mud is probably going to try and hold on to this position for as long as he can, hold up Freitas for absolutely as long as he possibly can, and then once Freitas gets by, that is probably when Mud is going to pull in for his pit stop. Let's go ahead and go to the TV cams here. As you can see, the 188 car of Freitas is right on the tail of Mud, but as we have seen time and time again on this track, passing can be quite an issue. You can very easily be the faster car and still not be able to make the pass. And so we will have to see if that's what happened here. In a lot of the situations that have happened so far, drivers had just had to wait for the driver in front of them to make a mistake in order to make the pass. And I have a feeling that is going to be the same situation here. We come down into the corkscrew with Mud still ahead of Freitas. Freitas brakes really late and gets very close to the back of that 511 car, but thankfully no contact was made, or at least not any that I saw. But as you can see from the passenger cam of Freitas' vehicle, he is very, very close to the tail of Mud, and sure enough, right as he was about to get past, Mud does dip into the pits. So exactly what I expected to happen was what happened. And it looks like Endres may have had an off. He did. Just gets a little bit loose and hits the sausage curb and goes off track, but thankfully nothing worse than that. No contact with the wall was made, and so thankfully Endres does not lose any positions and stays in that 10th place and continues to run along. Mud is now exiting out of the pits, and that gives Arjitsu the 4th position. Santos is still a bit of a ways back, so I don't think he is going to get by Mud. Most definitely not. Mud has already gotten back out onto the track ahead of them and will be up to pace shortly, with Santos still about 6 seconds back. So I don't think that will be an issue there. And it looks like Trocchio is closing in on Fernandez within half a second there. You can see when we go from the interior cam, you can see Fernandez just up ahead of Trocchio there, so we will have to keep an eye on this. That would be for the 11th position, as it looks like Gar is going into the pits. Yes, he is. Resetting his stint timer there, so we are closing in on having all of the drivers have made their stint timer reset drive-throughs. And then we will really get an idea for how the final 20 minutes or so are going to look. Trocchio continues to close in slowly on that 24 car of Fernandez. As up ahead of them, Arjitsu is now making his pit stop, which means that Mud and Santos are going to get by. So that means that our top 5 is now Storey, Ruotsalainen, Freitas, Mud, and Santos, who have all made their stops. Wilson is now also going to get by Arjitsu, who is just now exiting the pits. Sunkenlap is still 16 seconds back, it looks like. So that means that Arjitsu is going to very solidly stay in that 7th place, although he does go a little wide on that pit exit there, but it is not enough for it to be an issue. So let's go back to Trocchio, who is hounding Fernandez for that 11th position. Let's take a view from the Helicam here, and you can get an idea for how close it is. Probably about 3 car lengths down the straightaways, but then as they break into corners, Trocchio seems to close in quite a bit. Trocchio, again, has to really be careful of those sausage curbs. We saw him clip one of them earlier and then go off track and have a little bit of a spin. So I'm sure he is very, very weary of those curbs now and wanting to avoid that, as it looks like he goes through the corkscrew a bit better than Fernandez there, but still cannot close in enough to be able to get ready to make a pass just yet. While this goes on, just ahead of them in the 9th and 10th place, we have Endres closing in on Gar. He is now within a second, and that means that he is closing in on striking distance as Gar goes a little wide there. Let's see what this looks like from the passenger camera of Endres. Endres is clearly significantly faster through Sector 1, but has a little bit of a bobble there. And that means that Gar is going to stay safe for now. But now through this corner, it looked like Endres was going to get a better corner exit, but maybe backed out a little bit. Not entirely sure what happened there. It looked like Endres was going to exit with significantly more speed, as, again, Endres seems to be significantly faster than Gar through these corners, but with where Gar is on the track, Endres simply cannot make the pass and continues to brake harder than he needs to. But now Gar goes off track, and that is going to mean that Endres moves up into that 9th position. But Gar does not lose a ton of time, so we'll have to see if he can battle back. And while all that was going on, unfortunately, I did miss the pass, but Trocchio has made it past Fernandez and up into that 11th position. So now Trocchio is in 11th, but is 15 seconds back. And while this goes on, we have got a pass for 2nd, but that is because Ruotsalainen is pitting. So I guess Ruotsalainen had not cleared his pits yet, like I thought he had. Again, like I said, I have no way to actually know. But with that being the case, Freitas now moves up into 2nd and will set his sights on Storey, but that is a lot of ground to make up. Freitas is currently almost 30 seconds back from Storey, but again, I don't believe Storey has made his pit yet. I believe that earlier I said that he had. Now that I'm thinking about it more, I am correcting myself, and I don't actually believe that he has made his pit. Sure enough, he has not, because here he comes into the pit, and I should note that driving through the pits here does take about 30 seconds or more, and it looks like Storey is actually going to pit. He's not just going to drive through and reset the stint timer, he is actually going to go into his pit box and make a pit stop. I wonder if he's going to get new tires or what's going on there, maybe get fuel. That's the only thing that I could think, is that he's getting fuel, but that means that Freitas, who is right there, is going to pass for the lead, and that is going to move Storey down, not only past down out of the lead and down out of 2nd, but all the way down into 3rd. Thankfully for him, Mud is still very far back and is coming into the final corner, but that is still a bummer to see for Storey, that he needed to get fuel or whatever the case was, because that moves him down into 3rd. And that means that, as I mentioned earlier, I said Freitas was one of the fastest people and has the best lap currently. Freitas is going to move up into the lead, and I have a feeling that Ruotsalainen is going to have a hard time catching him and passing him. However, he is holding on tightly. Currently, I expected Freitas to get into the lead and just pull away, but as you can see from the passenger cam of Ruotsalainen's vehicle, Freitas is not pulling away very quickly. Ruotsalainen has held him to within a half a second, and we've done more than a lap since Freitas got by him. So you never know what could happen. Oh man, Ruotsalainen cut a lot of the corner there, and that is going to cost him a significant bit of time. It looks like almost a second, as he is now a second and a half behind Freitas. So once again, it looks like the commentator's curse may have gotten them. My apologies, Ruotsalainen, but again, I have to talk about what's going on track. Can't just ignore it. And speaking of not ignoring things, let's not ignore the fact that Trocchio has just ran his fastest lap at a 1:25.02. That is always exciting to see when drivers get their fastest lap. But as we go to look at him, he takes a little bit of a tight line on that corkscrew there and invalidates his current lap. So that is a bit of a bummer. Let's go ahead and look at somebody else then, so as to not cause any more issues for Trocchio, hopefully, with that good old commentator's curse. Looking at the lap times, it looks like of our recent laps, Santos actually has the current fastest lap of the most recent laps, that is. So Santos is about 3.5 seconds back from Mud. We will have to keep an eye on them. However, with Santos having ran the fastest lap most recently, it is important to note that Mud has the second fastest most recent lap by just a few hundredths. So I don't think Santos will be closing on him anytime soon. Let's go ahead and we are going to jump on board with Freitas as he is about to start a new lap. And I am going to stop talking for a minute here and just let you listen to the glorious sounds and see the sights of a lap from our leader. So, there you have it. That is what a lap looks like from the inside camera of our leader's vehicle. While that was happening, it looks like Fernandez had an off of some sort. That keeps him in 12th position, though, but that could potentially give Gross a chance at coming back. Not entirely sure how far behind Gross is from Fernandez, but Gross has also had a fair bit of offs and incidents during the race, so it is hard to say for sure. While that goes on, Santos has closed in very, very slightly on Mud. I believe when I mentioned it earlier, he was about a second and a half back. He is now just under a second back from Mud, and you can see on the camera there, that is Mud in that purple and gold car, just shortly ahead. Give me just 1 second. We are going to go back to an interior view again. It looks like I have got a phone call coming in. I know, not the most professional thing, but that is a-okay. Gives you guys the chance to see what things are looking like, as it looks like we have a vehicle off track in front of them, but it looks like that is going to be a non-issue. Alright, give me just 1 second. We'll be right back. Alright, my sincerest of apologies. My wife was calling, so I just wanted to be sure that there was nothing wrong. Wanted to be sure that I gave a call back, just to be sure, again, that there was nothing wrong there, and it appears that everything is okay. So now that we are back, as you can see, Santos was able to close in quite a bit on Mud, but Mud was able to hold on. So we will keep an eye on this battle and see what's going on, but while that is going on, it looks like Ruotsalainen has also closed in a little bit on Freitas. Freitas may have had an issue. Alright, sorry about that. Once again, my wife came in. She just wanted to check on me. It is very hot in the game, in the room that I am in currently, so she just wanted to be sure that I was okay. So I do appreciate her for checking in on me in that regard. And thankfully, while that was going on, nothing too crazy happened. It looked like Ruotsalainen did fall back a little bit. And while I mentioned that nothing crazy has happened, it looks like Trocchio has gone off track again. Thankfully, is not going to lose any positions. But it looks like he did get into the wall. Let's see if we can see what happens. Oh, Gross goes off track in front of him, and that maybe just throws him off. And then he gets into the wall, but again rejoins without any major issues, and hopefully not too much damage either. Our closest battle on track is still this battle between Santos and Mud. Santos is still within half a second of Mud, and looking to hopefully make that pass. As time is winding down, we have got less than 15 minutes left in the race. So Santos, if he wants to make that pass, he's going to have to really get bold here and start making some important moves, or hope that Mud makes a mistake, as Mud does. Mud goes a little wide in that same corner that he went wide in earlier when Freitas got by him. However, it does not appear that it was enough of a mistake for Santos to make the pass right away, but now Santos has got the inside line. They get close, they almost touch, and that gives Santos the inside line still, and that is going to give Santos the position. Santos now into 4th place past Mud, but I don't feel like Mud is going to take that lightly and is probably going to try to get that back, so we will have to keep an eye on these two. We will have to see if Santos can maybe pull away. Trocchio is off track once again. Trocchio is just having a lot of issues here at the end. That is really, really unfortunate, but thankfully is holding on to 11th place, as the 12th place car now, who is behind him, has also gone off. Lots of track issues back here in the back of the field. Not sure what's going on. I mean, like I've mentioned before, though, this is a tough track. It is very easy to make a small mistake that leads into a big problem, and I have a feeling that is probably what's going on back there. Mud has now fallen back to more than a second behind Santos already, so I feel like Santos is going to pull away, and that means that Santos is probably going to be very solidly in 4th by the time that this race is over, because he is currently 25 seconds back from Storey. Storey is currently 9 seconds back from Ruotsalainen. Ruotsalainen is still within 2 seconds of Freitas, so it is possible that this battle could heat up if Freitas were to make just the smallest of mistakes. So I'm sure Ruotsalainen has got his fingers crossed and is hoping that Freitas makes some sort of goes off track or spins or something along those lines. But I will say, Freitas, of all the times that I have watched him race, he is not one to make mistakes very often. So we will have to keep an eye on that. Throughout the rest of the field, it looks like we have got a lot of very, very spaced out vehicles. So, with that being the case, let's just go ahead and take a look at all of our drivers. So, we have got Freitas in 1st, as I just mentioned, in that 188 car. Ruotsalainen a little over a second back in 2nd in the 666 car. Storey currently in 3rd in the 584 car, 8.5 seconds back from Ruotsalainen. Santos in 4th in the 177 car, 26 seconds back from Storey. Mud in 5th place in the 511 car, 1.5 seconds back from Santos because Santos just passed him recently. 6th place is Wilson in the 86 car, 3 seconds back. 7th is our Jitsu, 14 seconds back in that 777 car. 8th is Sunthunlap in the 666, just the 66 car, not 666. 666 is Ruotsalainen, who is in 2nd. My apologies. He is 20 seconds back from our Jitsu. Endres in 9th in the 5 car is 42 seconds back from Sunthunlap. Gar in the 16 car is 20 seconds back from Endres. Trocchio is just 1.5 seconds back from Gar in 11th place. 12th is Fernandez, who is 18 seconds back. And Gross is in 13th in the number 3 car. He is 1 minute and 10 seconds behind Fernandez, and then Hester is in the pits and has retired from the race. Let's go ahead and take a look back at Trocchio, who, as I mentioned, has closed in on Gar for potentially that 10th place. So we will have to keep an eye on this, as again, aside from the 1st to 2nd position, this is one of our closest battles out on track currently. So we will definitely be keeping an eye on this. As you can see there from that TV cam, Trokio does have a lot of front end damage. Let's take a look at Gar's car, see if Gar has any damage potentially. Let's wait for a good camera angle, and there is a good one, and it does not look like Gar has any damage, so that is going to make it a little bit harder for Trokio to get by Gar. But with that being said, Trokio has now gotten within a second, so that damage may not be hurting Trokio as bad as it may seem. Down this front straightaway, Trokio continues to close in just a little bit. Brakes really, really late there and goes really wide. Gets to the outside of Gar, but I don't think that he's going to get as good of an exit as Gar will. And I have been proven to be correct, but now through that corner, Gar seemed to have had some issues. Let's go ahead and go on to the passenger cam of Trokio's vehicle and see what he is seeing here. Let's see if Gar is going to make any mistakes or anything. We're going to see it very clearly from Trokio's view. Oh, mud is a yellow flag through the corkscrew, and that is going to move him down into 6th place. So while that battle goes on back there, it appears that mud has had an issue. What happened? Oh, just oversteers a little bit and into the wall, and that means that Wilson moves into the top 5 and Mud moves into 6th and now has Arjitsu 7 seconds behind him. While that goes on though, Trokio is still hot on the tail of Gar. As you can see from Gar's wing here, Trokio is right behind him. Trokio looks like he was going to make a look to the inside and does. And from the Helicam here we can see, oh, what happens? What happened? What happened there? Trokio had the position made and then backed out of it. I don't know what could have happened there. He just backed out. I guess conceded the place for the blue flag, potentially. I know that Arjitsu is up in 7th, as we mentioned, so I know that all those vehicles that we are currently seeing on our screen had blue flags, but that seemed like a very, very odd time to give up that position. But I'm speechless. I felt like Arjitsu had room to go between the middle of them, and it probably would have been no issue, but Trokio decided to do what I would say is probably the most respectful thing, and just back out of it and give that position up. But that means now that he's going to have to fight back to pass Gar, and going off track like that is not going to help. So now he's only got 7 minutes to get back up to Gar and try and get that 10th place. We will have to keep an eye on that. And speaking of keeping an eye on things, let's go back up to the front here where Ruotsalainen is still just over 1.5 seconds back. As Trokio, as we leave the camera, Trokio has had another issue. His race has just been plagued with hitting curbs and going off track and spinning out, and it looks like that is what has happened again. Just gets a little bit of dirt and spins. Thankfully, once again, has not hit anything, so that is good news for him. The bad news is that he is now 9 seconds behind Gar, and it looks like his hopes of a top 10 finish have been dashed. The 188 car of Freitas, still leading the race, is going to be closing in on who I believe is the 66 car of Santonlap. We will have to see what happens here, and if the 66 car benefits the 666 car at all. It looks like Freitas is going to get stuck behind him just a little bit through Sector 1 here. Not really any good spot for the car of Santonlap to concede that place, or sorry, to give up that blue flag. I don't know what I'm saying. I think you get the idea. But Santonlap has finally backed out of it and let Freitas get by, and it does not appear that it benefited Ruotsalainen too much, especially because Ruotsalainen is now going to get up to that 66 car, roughly in the corkscrew area or in some sort of other area that is not very easy to pass through. And as I mentioned that, Santonlap spins and goes off track. Thankfully for Santonlap, though, Endres is the next vehicle behind him, who is still, even after the spin, 40 seconds back. So even with that spin off track, Santonlap is not in any danger of losing his 8th place position. Back on board with Ruotsalainen. He did gain, it looks like, just a tiny bit. He was a little over 2 seconds back before Freitas got to that 66 car of Santonlap, and is now 1.8 seconds back. So it is possible that it gained Ruotsalainen a little bit of time, but not enough for it to really be of any major benefit. So with that, we've got a lot of big gaps between the field here, and we are closing in on 4 minutes to go in the race. Temperature, it looks like, has gone up by just 1 degree Celsius over the entirety of the race. It was 28 degrees Celsius when we started, and is now 29 degrees Celsius, so not enough for it to make any effect on people's tire pressures or anything like that. Had that been the case, I'm sure that would have made things quite interesting. But unfortunately that did not happen, so everybody's tire pressures are correct and leads for no guessing games. Oh, it looks like Freitas went a little wide on the corner exit there, kicked up a little bit of dirt, but it was not enough of an off-track incident to really gain Ruotsalainen too much time. It looks like he just gained about a 10th or 2. Which leaves him at still more than a 1.5 seconds back. So certainly was shocking to see that dirt cloud get kicked up, and I'm sure Ruotsalainen had a glimmer of hope there for a second, but it simply was not enough for it to benefit Ruotsalainen significantly. On that last set of laps, Ruotsalainen was quicker, but only by a 10th. So again, Ruotsalainen is not closing in here too fast, if at all. I feel like over the laps, they kind of balance each other out. It's like Freitas will have a quicker lap, and then Ruotsalainen will have a quicker lap, and then they just keep flip-flopping back and forth, which means that Freitas has continued to hold on to a 1.8 to, we'll say, roughly between a 1.7 and a 2.2 second lead. Down through the corkscrew they go. Again, it looks like we are going to be doing 2 more laps. That would be my guess. Actually, now that I'm looking at it... Oh yeah, no, 124, sorry. For some reason I was thinking that they were in the 150s all of a sudden. No, they are in the 124s, which means that with the fact that he is just about to start a new lap with 150-something left in the race still, that means we are going to have 2 more laps left in the race. So they will do this lap, and then they will get the white flag the next time by. So, since we are closing in on the finish, let's go ahead and go through the field one final time. We have got Freitas in the lead in the 188 car, Ruotsalainen in second in the 666 car, Storey in third in that 584 car, and it is worth noting that he has closed the gap significantly all the way down to just 11 seconds, but again, with only 2 laps left, it is not going to be enough for him to make up any positions. Still a very impressive showing nonetheless. Fourth is Santos in the 177 car. Fifth is Wilson in the 86 car, and he actually is closing in on Santos. It's just over a second back, so we will have to keep an eye on that as we close in on the final lap. Mudd is in 6th in the 511 car. Arjitsu is in 7th in the 777 car. Santonlap is in 8th in the 66 car. Endres in 9th in the number 5 car. Gar in 10th in the 16 car. Trocchio in 11th in the 242 car. Fernandez in 12th in the 24 car. Gross in 13th in the 3 car, as Storey has had an off. Let's see if we can see what happens here. Oh, as has been the story. Sorry, no pun intended there. I said as the story goes, just based on the fact that that's not what I normally say, but it just so happens that his name is also Storey. Anyways, he hit the curb and then went wide, and that is what caused the issue there. But while that was going on, Freitas has taken the white flag and is on the last lap after an absolutely incredible performance. Freitas started in dead last in 15th and has worked his way all the way up through the field, and since pit stops has dominated from the lead, with Ruotsalainen still 3 seconds back now. It has been Freitas' race to lose. Absolutely incredible showing from him here. Again, coming all the way up through the field is not an easy thing to do, especially at a track like Laguna Seca. But as we watched almost every single one of his passes happen, and they were all very impressive. And while that happens, Trocchio moves up into 10th, finally makes that pass on Gar, but I cannot look at it now because Freitas is coming to the finish line and is going to win round 2 of America's Nights Season 7. An absolutely incredible showing from Freitas as he wins here at Laguna Seca, with Ruotsalainen finishing in the 2nd position. Again, let's go ahead and take a look at Trocchio, who has moved up into 10th. While that happens, Suntenlap is going to cross the finish line and finish in 8th. The 584 car of Storey is still going to finish 3rd despite his off there at the end. The 24 car is going to be the next to cross the finish line and finish in 12th. Gar seems to have had an issue and is spun around on track on the final lap. Thankfully, the only car behind him has already finished the race, so nothing to worry about there. Santos is going to come across and finish 4th in this race, with Wilson right behind him finishing 5th. Mudd is going to be the next one coming to the finish line and is going to finish 6th in a race that has seen him make just a few small mistakes, but they cost him positions both times. However, a 6th place finish is still absolutely excellent. I missed it, but 777 car of Arjitsu has also finished and finished 7th, funny enough. And some of our final vehicles to cross the finish line here going to be the 3 car of Gross, who will finish in 13th, and the 242 car of Trocchio, who will get that top 10 after all, despite going off track a few times. And our final car to come across and finish the race is going to be the 16 car of Gar. Absolutely incredible race from everybody. Again, Freitas with an absolutely amazing showing, coming all the way from last up to first. We saw a lot of people struggle with those major, gigantic sausage curves that Laguna Seca has to offer, and also that dirt that is right on corner exit on a lot of curbs. Not a lot of curbing to work with, and that led to issues for a lot of drivers. But despite that, it was still an absolutely incredible race from everybody. Excellent showing. And I hope to see everyone who is here watching for the next race, which will be at... I actually don't know where the next race will be. I want to say it's going to be at Watkins Glen, but I don't know for sure. Let me check real quick, and then I will send you guys on your way. I am just pulling up the website real quick here to see. The next race is at... It is, in fact, at Watkins Glen. I got it right. So that is going to be a very exciting race. Watkins Glen never, ever disappoints. So I hope to see you then. I hope you enjoyed the broadcast, and I hope you all have an absolutely fantastic night. Peace out, everybody.